This is part 2 of my new series of quotes from famous filmmakers that I just absolutely love. A, the filmmaker, and B, their quotes. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Isham. I'm a filmmaker, photographer. I've done over 1 billion views online, and recently I made over 13 short films in the last 3 months. I want to share these quotes because they not only inspire me, but I hope that they do the same and inspire you. In film, we sculpt time, we sculpt behavior, and we sculpt light. David Fincher. I love this quote because as a filmmaker, that's truly what we are doing is, playing with not only time, behavior, and light. And those are really the 3 things. I mean, you could say you're missing actually one thing, which is sound. And those 4 elements really together make up filmmaking, is time, behavior, light, and sound. And if, as a director, to understand the craft of those 4 things, that's what makes the greats, in my opinion. There's no free lunch, so if you're playing with the big train set on movies, it's a lot of money they're entrusting you with. And you have to get that money back for them. I don't take that responsibility lately. Jon Favreau. I mean, somebody who's been given a lot of money for very big films and who really has done it right for them. You look at the legendary movies he's made, such as Elf, to Lion King, to then obviously the Iron Man franchise. The man knows what he's doing, and it's an interesting thing to look at films from the standpoint of their investments, that the studios and the people giving you the money to make them want to make their money back and more. There's an aspect of art being an investment tool where it is a business. You don't make products for charity, There is definitely some art that is art for art's sake, and there are patrons of the art which are amazing that just want to see that art in the world. But a lot of art is also commerce, where people are using it as an investment to not only share the art with the world, but also make their money back and more. So it's definitely the responsibility of filmmakers to know what type of investment they're getting. Are they getting it as a endowment for the arts, or are they getting it as an investment where the investors want to make their money back? Definitely something to look at for yourself when you're making films. I definitely look at it myself when I make films. When you're doing films just with friends, with no money, on a shoestring, you have to be able to do all the jobs, and it's a wonderful way to learn everything. Christopher Nolan. I think that's part of the reason why he's so iconic as a director, is because he does know how to do everything. He is unbelievably talented on set, and as a director, if you don't have an understanding of cinematography, you don't have an understanding of sound, if you don't have an understanding of music, of acting, of all the different departments of lighting, camera, you're just kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna hopefully they do the right thing. I remember on my college thesis film, I had very little to no understanding of cinematography. And thank God I had casted the right cinematographer, who was one of the top cinematographers at the film school at the time. And the film looked beautiful, but he would then turn to me and be like, what do you think? And I'd be like, oh, looks cool. I couldn't communicate with him. I didn't know what to say. I didn't really know what lenses or what camera movements, or just, I had such a lack of understanding of that medium, which was what we were using. Filmmaking is talking through the camera. I then spent the next 10 years studying cinematography, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm so obsessed with cinematography. I have a background in music and in sound. I ran a recording studio for a number of years, so it allows me to have the expertise of the craft I do, but because I have drilled it all over the years I've been doing this. The more you know is never gonna hurt you. The more you know how to do all the different jobs and the better you can do them, regardless of you actually having to do them, is only going to benefit you as a filmmaker, and it's never gonna hurt you. People will forgive pretty much every technical thing before they will forgive bad sound. Your movie could look amazing, but if on every cut the audio track is popping and making them aware of the cuts, it will pull them out. Ryan Coogler. that is definitely the point of a student film 101, is you can tell it because it has bad sound. It has bad audio, bad dialogue, bad sound design, and bad mixing. Audio as a whole, whether it's the dialogue, the sound design, or the music, have such an integral part in filmmaking. I remember this story of a friend of mine's dad who was a big director. And one of the things he did when we were kids, when a movie got scary or something was a little bit too intense, instead of closing our eyes, he'd have us close our ears. Because what makes the scene scary, what makes Jaws scary, Psycho scary, is not the shark jumping at you, it's not the knife coming down, but it's that it's a dun dun dun. It's the music, it's the sound design. My wife and I were just watching Reacher the other night, and what was scary about it was the music would creep up, the sound design would get scary, and we're like, oh no, is he gonna get attacked? What's gonna go down right now? But it's because of the audio. So really be aware of that when you're making your films, and take the extra time to do that. If I could boil it down to one thing, never ask permission to make movies. There's no reason why you have to be asking permission to do your work. Chris McQuarrie. I love this. It's an interesting balance with making movies, because they are arguably the hardest art form to make, because it takes a team and it takes a lot of energy to make movies. It's definitely not something you can do on your own. So you have to push through whatever barriers might come up, and it might be hey, I can't do it right now. I have this, I have that. Don't have the money, don't have the budget, don't have the time. The last thing that you need to worry about is permission. Is go push through all of those barriers yourself and go make the movies you want to make. The advice I would give to any director is that you should act. A lot of directors spend a lot of time getting very good at technical things and imagining things visually, but they never really learn how to direct a scene. It doesn't matter how good a shot looks, the lifeblood, the thing that people will connect to, is these people. Greta Gerwig. I think that's part of the reason why so many actors become directors, is because they understand the craft. First and foremost, a director is responsible for the performances of the actors. They're the only one who's responsible for that, besides the actual actors themselves. The director will handle your lighting, will handle your camera work. Your sound mixer will handle the sound. Everybody handles their respective jobs and the people that they're underneath. The only people that is responsible for the actors and the performances is the actors and the director. So to understand that craft more and more is only going to help you. Take an improv class, take an acting class, and start learning the craft of how actors talk and how actors like to be talked to. There are so many videos online of actors getting the worst notes, and so many horror stories of actors being like, what do you want me to do? What are you looking for? So as a director, if you can know how to talk to your actor to get that emotion, to get that performance that you're looking for, is only going to make everyone's life easier, and is only going to make your film better. Before you say cut, wait 5 more seconds. Vendors. There are so many stories of this where you just wait to say cut. You let a little bit of magic happen. Or on the other side, you start rolling before you say action, and you let that moment breathe, let those actors think with it and sit there, because you never know what's going to happen. There's a great story with Jack Nicholson on The Departed, where he talks about the ability to write, and he's talking to Matt Damon about it. However, if you look at this as the standpoint of a director, of like letting that scene expand a little bit longer than it might be written, you might get some gold that you never expected. Cinema is a mirror by which we often see ourselves. Alejandro Inarritu. This quote mirrors obviously a very cliche quote, which is write what you know and make the movies that you know and the stories you want to tell. I've always kind of struggled with that because I love making sci-fi action movies. I've never been in the military. I've never been to space. Probably won't ever be to space. But all the sci-fi movies, all the action movies, the horror movies, there are elements that mirror our lives and the stories that we want to tell and that are personal to us. Whether your movie takes place in space, in the future, in the past, in some foreign land, there's an aspect of humanity in it, and there's an aspect of ourselves in it, and which is why we connect to these characters as wild as Lord of the Rings, as far off as in Star Wars, is because we see ourselves in it. The more successful the villain, the more successful the picture. Alfred Hitchcock. The best villains to ever be written are the most morally ambiguous, where us as the audience go, he's not wrong. She's not wrong about that. I think one of the best examples of a villain these days is Thanos, because there are elements of his argument which are completely valid. And he's not wrong about it. Now, the way he goes about it and his solution for it might not be the right thing. But the best villains will push the heroes to be the best versions of themselves, which is a lot of why we love films, is that we love to see the conflict and to see the hero overcome the hardest conflicts. So don't write wimpy villains. Don't create wimpy villains. Put your heroes, put your main characters to the test with the biggest problems. Something my wife and I constantly go over is write problems for your protagonist that you don't even know how to solve and force them to solve them. Because that's what makes great movies. You hear it said time and time again by successful directors. You have to make a movie for yourself. Don't make it for anyone else. Jordan Peele. I don't know what else to say to that, but it's so true. You know, you make the movies you want to make, and the movies that you want to make, you'll have the most passion behind and the most perseverance to push through making that art. It's a lot of work to make movies. It's not easy. So you might as well take the time and the energy to make a movie that you want to make and a story that you want to tell. Storytelling was a way to see the world bigger than the one you're looking at, and that had great appeal for me. Robert Redford. This goes hand in hand with that last quote, and storytelling and filmmaking really allows you to open up worlds that never existed before, whether it's fantasy or sci-fi, but also give insight to worlds that might not get as much awareness to the general public. You look at great, indie movies like what Sean Baker's doing, but also to cultures that don't get highlighted as much. Look at what Tyler Perry is doing. He's made amazing movies that, you see underrepresented cultures in movies, and it is absolutely phenomenal to get to experience those cultures that we might otherwise not get to experience or get to see, but because that filmmaker brings it to life, the world gets to enjoy it. Movies don't look hard, but figuring it out, getting the shape of it, getting everybody's character right, and then having fun, make sense, and be romantic, it's creating a puzzle. Nancy Myers. I love this comparison of a movie is like a puzzle because it's so true. There are so many pieces to making a movie, all the way from writing and pre-production, all the way through post-production. You have to get all of those pieces right. And honestly, it's even more than that. It's also into the marketing of the film. You look at some of the greatest films that we love were massive box office flops, but have become cult classics. But because they had the pieces right in the film, but didn't have the pieces right in the marketing. It is really combining all of the right pieces together to make a great film that reaches the audience that will love it. And finally, the last quote. Perhaps it sounds ridiculous, but the best thing that young filmmakers should do is to get hold of a camera and make a movie of any kind at all. Stanley Kubrick. Filmmakers make movies. Writers write. Simple as that. If you want to do the craft, you just got to do it. And nothing beats the way of just making movies, whether large or small. So go out and make movies. I hope these inspire you. Can't wait to see what you create.